right now.
So.
Okay. So I think what we should start doing, at least for these types of broadcasts, is I'll wait until it gets to about
now.
20. Good. I'll wait until we get to about 20 people, and then from there we'll jump right into, film and that kind of stuff. But we'll start with inactives here. So we got 1 minute until. So
yeah.
Is this? Are we good on Periscope? Is Periscope working again?
We're not doing Periscope this week.
Still?
Periscope. Yeah, it's still down.
Great.
Yeah. I'm gonna do more tweeting to get the word out about this. So.
Okay. All right. So it is 11 o'clock. So let's try to actually start on time this week. So here we go. All right, welcome back to the About the Labor pregame show, previewing the Minnesota Vikings the Los Angeles Rams at the Minnesota Vikings today at US Bank Stadium. Drew and I'm BJ Reidell. Drew next to me, as always, Drew Mahowald. And today, so we're going to be looking at some film clips. There's also some interesting inactives today. Brian Robinson, if you haven't heard yet, the veteran defensive end, he'll be missing today's game. First time I've seen him inactive in God knows how long. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then Andrew Sendejo is officially out. Anthony Harris has been marked down as his replacement for this game, according to the Star Tribune. So we'll talk a little bit about that and what that means for this team against the Rams here. And then we'll finish up with a lot of clips of film here. I've got some good Rams stuff and also some highlights from the Vikings game last week. So we'll take a look at all that stuff, finish up with some, bold predictions, questions, that type of thing like we always do here. Get you guys ready for the game that starts in about 1 hour here. So what we're going to do here is we're just kind of going to talk a little bit about these inactives here until we get more people into the chat. And once we have more people rolling in YouTube, unfortunately, Periscope does not work again this week. We apologize for that to any of you guys that prefer using that medium. Hopefully that'll be back up next week. So YouTube and Shindig right now, make sure to jump into that Shindig room. If you can, we'll be tweeting out the links and doing some other stuff on Twitter if you want to follow us there. And just for a greater overall experience, I know Drew tweets this out basically every week. The Shindig app itself will offer you a lot more room for fun, I suppose, if you jump into this room with us. We've got a couple people in here with us right now. Thanks for showing up, guys. All right, so let's jump right into the inactives here. For the most part, it was a lot of, from what we kind of expected. For the Vikings, Brian Robinson is the one kind of question, head scratcher, I suppose. But Mike Remmers, right tackle, is going to be out. That's going to be Rashad Hill. We knew that was coming a couple days ago here. And then, Andrew Sendejo being out. And like I said before, Anthony Harris is in as the starter there. And then Brian Robinson, strangely inactive. And Sean Bauer, that means, is going to make his first appearance potentially. So let's start with the first one here with Mike Remmers and Rashad Hill. Obviously, this is a multi-week thing now for Remmers. You have to be a little bit concerned as far as concussions go. I saw we got in one of our last YouTube videos here. I don't know if it was a VT Roundtable one or an ATL one or whatever it was, but someone asked how long do concussions, what's the timetable for concussions? And first of all, let's just say here, it's not BJ Reidell, MD, for a reason, but at the same time, concussions are, from what I have come to know, they don't have a real timetable. You have a general estimate that guys can get back after 2 or 3 days, but the protocol is in place for a reason, right? It's because people don't really know when people get back to 100% from concussions. I think there's a case to be made here that we might find out 40 years down the road that every single concussion is literally just chipping away at your brain, and you may never fully recover for it. So again, not a doctor, but I don't know an answer to that one. You got to be a little bit concerned for Mike Remmers at this point, though, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, and I think obviously that concern level rises when you look at how well he's played this year and how much better he has played in comparison to the expectations that he was given before the season. So, this isn't a knock on Rashad Hill. He's obviously, I think last week he was one of the few tackles in the league, actually, that didn't allow a pressure, I believe. So, you have to give credit for the Vikings, the front office for not, or for rather, building that depth, adding Rashad Hill and knowing they have a guy that can play both sides of the line in the event of an injury here. But I am concerned now, especially today, if either Hill or Reef does go down, because after that the depth isn't great behind them. So you have to hope, at least for today and until Remmers is healthy, that those two guys especially can stay healthy.
Yeah, you gotta, you take a look at who the likely swing tackle is this week. Swing tackle, for those of you that aren't, I guess, well versed in football terminology, meaning your backup tackle, a guy that could play both the left tackle spot or the right tackle spot in a pinch. I think this is probably Jeremiah Searles this week. It seems like he's the most likely candidate to be that guy. So for me, you guys know this about me, a little bit of a concern there. So that's the biggest issue for the Mike Remmers injury. I was actually been pretty impressed with Rashad Hill. Not just last year, but I'm glad he's finally getting that encore performance that he got, after that big week against the Chicago Bears, Week 17 last year. It's nice to see him back on the field. Another guy that's back on the field this week, or I guess he had a 1 week layover with Sendejo coming back from suspension and then playing last week. But Anthony Harris is going to be back out there today, former Virginia football player. For a guy that a lot of I think I say this every time we talk about Anthony Harris, a guy that I thought was going to be a mid-round draft pick, ends up sliding all the way out, probably because of his size, and something that we've seen shown up a little bit with the Vikings in his short tenure in Minnesota. Anthony Harris, you love this dude. There's a lot to like about his coverage skills in particular. But against Todd Gurley today, against a very strong offensive line for the Rams, does his size become a concern? Are you worried about that being a potential issue, as it has been in the past against this very stout running attack?
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously I think that's some concern, but I think the Rams they're obviously not just a running team, and it's going to be nice to have his range kind of in that center field position for this Vikings defense, and it will allow Harrison Smith, I would assume anyway, that he'll be playing a lot more, in the box, kind of up against the run. And I think we have some clips coming up today about that show his ability when he is on the run blitz, and how fast he can get to the line of scrimmage and make a stop. So, I think this isn't that bad. It's, again, we talk about how the safety depth isn't that great, but with Anthony Harris, I think you can still allow Harrison Smith to be an elite player, because he's still elite in the box as a run defender, as kind of that money backer role if need be. And Anthony Harris is proven to be solid in coverage, solid in zone, and solid at reading the quarterback's eyes, and reliable as a kind of a center field range player on the back end.
You could definitely be comfortable with Anthony Harris as a zone safety. That's one thing that you love about him. That's why he's still on that 53-man roster.
I'd be a lot less comfortable if it was Jaron Kearse. Because Harris was limited in practice a bit this week. So if Harris couldn't go, Jaron Kearse would be in, and that would be a little more scary, I would say.
Especially with, an offense that runs so many vertical routes, runs a ton of play action, a ton of stuff to mess you up defensively. Yeah, Kearse has been a lot better this year, in my opinion, in limited action, but at the same time, you do have those stemming from his rookie season. So getting on to the meat here, this is weird to me, because I didn't see this one coming at all, at least from an X's and O's standpoint. I didn't see, Robinson's role as being a defensive end, a 5 technique that can move into that 3 technique spot along the defensive line. That's always been a very valuable asset for Mike Zimmer. This is the first time I've seen Brian Robinson inactive in probably 4 years. I don't remember the last time he was inactive. This is weird. This is kind of a changing of the guards to a degree, because you see this week now you've got Griffin. It's going to be Griffin, Hunter, Bauer. That's 4 guys that you'll probably be seeing here for at least the next 5 years, probably more, for the vast majority of that group. What does this mean to you, if anything, Brian Robinson being active against the Rams this week?
Well, I don't think Tayshaun Bauer will play a lot today. Last week against Washington, it was primarily 3 guys. I mean, they used Danielle Hunter, they used Robinson, and they used Stephen Weatherly quite a bit too. So it's going to be, the same strategy, but instead of Robinson being in and getting a lot of those snaps, it'll be Griffin replacing him, and then Hunter on the other side. And I think, then you'll see Stephen Weatherly rotate in, if they do want to go with 3 defensive ends and move either Hunter or Griffin inside, which they have done in the past, then they bring in Weatherly. But, I mean, I don't see this as some sort of coming out party for Tayshaun Bauer unless there's an injury in which he gets an opportunity. But, this points to the – right. But, again, this points to the depth that the Vikings have built. at that defensive line spot, and they can have an injury and afford to have an injury with Robinson, afford him to recuperate and get healthy. And they have guys like Stephen Weatherly and Bauer who have they performed really well in the preseason, and we have fair reason to expect pretty good things when they show up on the field.
Well, Weatherly in particular has actually looked pretty good in sort of the old Danielle Hunter role, I suppose, kind of the rotational guy that comes in and switches in for both Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter on occasion. He looked pretty good last week. He actually had the forced fumble on that play last week that ended up getting called back, but that was Stephen Weatherly that knocked that ball loose. I thought he was actually pretty solid last week. I've been really impressed with him. That's a guy that I wasn't very high on coming into this year. I remember guys like at training camp, for example, guys like Arif Hassan and Luke Inman were both really high on Steve. I think Sam Ekstrom as well were really high on Stephen Weatherly, and I just wasn't buying into it all that much, and I've liked what I've seen from him. So, it's going to be interesting. Consider this: with Robinson out, who is your 3 technique? Like who, in a quote, in a package where you want to have as much bulk as possible, as much, pass rushing talent on your defensive line. Is it going to be Hunter or Griffin that moves inside so you can add a 3rd defensive end? I think Griffin is probably the greatest candidate for this because he just kind of has a defensive tackle body. He's like an undersized defensive tackle playing defensive end, essentially.
Yeah,
he would work really well in a 3-4 scheme, in my opinion, just because of his, just his frame itself. So I think that if the Vikings do elect to play 3 defensive ends on a given design, I think that Everson Griffin is probably the most likely candidate to slip into that 3 technique spot alongside Linval Joseph or Tom Johnson, whoever it is at the time. So I do think it's interesting, though, that Brian Robinson is inactive the week that Jared Allen comes back. I thought that was kind of funny just because those are 2 guys that – we saw a lot of Jared Allen in Brian Robinson when they were, and not just because they're both white. I know everyone wants to think that, but in terms of just the personality, the tenacity, the outgoing, the showmanship, I see a lot of in the same in those 2 guys. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So before we jump into the film, though, let's get a quick break for our sponsor note here. I'll get this out of the way real quick and finish up with straight Vikings football all the way out here. SOCOM Creative, is your website ugly? It's time for an upgrade. It's almost 2018. If your website doesn't look good on a smartphone, you are losing money. That's just how it is. It's time to call an audible. Take your business to the next level with professional quality website or mobile app, and thank us later. The world is changing. It's time to score touchdowns, stop missing field goals. I think that's kind of a subtext at Blair Walsh, by the way. If you want your business to grow online, you need a web, social media, and mobile presence that gets the job done. SOCOM Creative will do that for you. They build apps, websites, and create winning strategies. Check them out at www.socomcreative.co, SOCOM creative.co. All right, back to some Vikings football stuff here. Let's start with the Rams defense here for no particular reason. I just really like this Rams defense. I'm going to start with the guy that you highlighted on the last About the Labor podcast here, a guy that we talked about quite a bit, Mark Barron, because I think I'm not going to lie to you guys. I really liked Mark Barron coming out. I thought he was going to be an elite safety in the NFL. I thought he had all the skills in terms of tackling, of taking good angles to the ball, good coverage, nasty, heavy hitter, all those skills. And it never panned out in Tampa Bay. Then he gets to Los Angeles and plays with Greg Williams. And I'm with you guys. I hate Greg Williams too. The guy is, a POS as far as I'm concerned. But he's also a genius defensive mind, and he had the idea to bring Mark Barron from over the top down into the box. Now he's basically playing a similar role to what Dion Buchanan does in Arizona as a money backer. So, I guess to kind of elaborate on that term, basically a linebacker that can also cover very well. And you see that pop up on display quite a bit with Mark Barron. So let's start with this play. We'll run it through once just to give you guys a visual of what I'm talking about here. Barron is number 26 on this play. He's going to get the interception. And what I want to look at here is, simply put, this is not an interception you expect a linebacker to make. Think about what you expect in terms of hands, in terms of ability to, ball skills, I suppose, to some degree, being able to read the quarterback. Mm-hmm. These are safety skills. And this is what you see for Mark Barron. Like, check out the eyes right here on the quarterback. This is Tom Savage, by the way, so for what it's worth, you might have to, take that for what it is. But look at Tom Savage's eyes right here. Look at Mark Barron as he shifts his head over, as he moves himself into position. He's got, if you were to draw a line from Tom Savage's eyes to Mark Barron's like perspective, if you do that cone view that they used to have in Madden, for example, they're going to line up basically right in sync. And then Barron is going to make a great play right here. Basically, that's a safety interception. I don't care what anyone says. That's a play that a safety is supposed to make. That's a play that we've seen Harrison Smith make a ton. And this is something that Mark Barron has done very well during a relatively short tenure with Los Angeles.
Yeah, and that's why I was a bit concerned about the, Jerick McKinnon and Kyle Rudolph kind of having, it's important for them to make themselves available to Case Keenum today, because I would assume Mark Barron will have responsibility for both McKinnon and Rudolph throughout the day. And, he's one of those guys that he's really good at, he anticipates things, he baits quarterbacks into throws. And, he understands the tendencies of quarterbacks very well. And he understands here that, with Tom Savage, you can undercut a throw here by reading his eyes. And, that's what some quarterbacks do, that they lock onto receivers that they want to throw to. And they make it easy sometimes for DBs. And that's what Mark Barron did here. And that's why I'm concerned about this passing game. If the Rams are able to take away Diggs and Thielen, I think it could be a long day for Case Keenum and company.
It's part of the concern here for me, especially is with Case Keenum, is that I love Keenum as a decision maker, but sometimes his body can't make the throws that his head wants to make, right? He just doesn't have the arm talent that some quarterbacks do, and you see him throw these ducks every once in a while. And the Rams being, number one in turnovers in the league, present a grand obstacle in terms of throwing into tight windows and that type of thing. Final thought on Mark Barron here. I find it very interesting that he wasn't looked at as a linebacker when he was coming out of Alabama, or at least, from my perspective, for the people that I follow, I didn't see anyone grade him as a linebacker. And as I watched his film this week, I kept seeing Shaq Thompson. Remember Shaq Thompson from Washington? Yeah. That was a linebacker down at Carolina. I see a lot of the same skills. And the Shaq Thompson's the guy we're going to see in a couple of weeks here. So keep an eye on Mark Barron today. Just try to imagine the skill set. He's basically a safety up here in his head, and his body's a linebacker. So very talented player, someone to keep an eye on all week here, all game here. I suppose the next 4 hours, and then you probably don't need to care about Mark Barron anymore. But after that, all right. So getting into the next one here. You guys knew that this guy was going to pop up here at some point in our film review. This is Aaron Donald. If you don't know who Aaron Donald is, just turn the show off right now, just because you're probably not.
Yeah. I think according to PFF, he had literally the best player in the NFL. He has the best PFF grade in the NFL. He's the best. He might be the best player in the NFL.
And we get in, we kind of get in spats with PFF all the time in terms of disagreeing with stuff like Xavier Rhodes being penalized for penalties and all that kind of stuff. But they're right about Aaron Donald. This guy is phenomenal. And the biggest issue with Aaron Donald is playing right next to him is Michael Brockers, monster dude. I compared him to Liville Joseph in terms of what his role is for the defense of the Rams. And in a 3-4 base, Wade Phillips is going to be a lot more creative with his defensive rushing schemes and the designs of his defensive play calls and the coverages and all that kind of stuff. What makes Aaron Donald so powerful, I suppose, is that he can beat you with literally everything. You see on this play right here, he's going to be on the left side of your screen. He's going to end up coming through the B gap here, and basically he's just going to beat his guy. He gets a one-on-one situation. And, I think you hear wide receivers say this quite a bit more than any other position, but wide receivers tend to really like it when they get in one-on-one matchups, because they believe, divas for the most part, they believe they can always beat the guy across from them. And Aaron Donald, for me, is a guy just like that, where you give him a one-on-one situation without a chip, without any protection, without any extra protection, I should say, and he does stuff like this right here. You see Tom Savage fall down like a tree when he hits him.
Right, and you see him turn the offensive lineman where he's almost at a 90-degree angle with perpendicular to where he's supposed to be facing. Right, he's got him turned sideways where. Obviously, you have an offensive lineman, you're supposed to be protecting him like this. And once he gets him turned there, it's over. Aaron Donald's too fast for a guard to catch up with in that situation. Once he's turned, facing the sideline, it's over. And I think that's going to be the challenge today for, I assume, Nick Easton or Joe Berger or Pat Elflein. I'm sure they're going to move him around a little bit and try and test the waters with each of those guys to see, who's on their game today, who's not. And Aaron Donald, again, we could talk all show about Aaron Donald, but simply put, he's the best defensive lineman in the game right now, especially obviously with J.J. Watt out, if there's any competition to be a healthy J.J. Watt. But Aaron Donald, he's going to be a force today. And I think, like I said on the podcast, I would recommend that the Vikings establish the run behind, the fundamental idea of double teaming him when possible, especially if you're trying to run up in the A gaps. Team up Easton and Elfline on him, or Berger and Elfline, whatever it is. I think you really have to make sure, because he can do what Linval Joseph does, and he can also do what Everson Griffin does. I mean, you have that combined into one player, and it's basically impossible to stop.
Yeah, you look at this play, this play design here from Wade Phillips is basically he's going to have line up 3 guys in the line of scrimmage and have 2 guys coming off of the edge here, and that forces a situation where Aaron Donald is going to get a one-on-one matchup in the inside, forces the quarterback to make a quick read, quick decision, and get the ball out of his hands. And if he doesn't, Donald's going to get to you. He's got the quick. We talked about Sharif Floyd having the quickest first step that in a long time that we've seen since maybe Kevin Williams. Aaron Donald is a guy that absolutely thrives on that first step. And you can see the way he sets up his lineman here too. He kind of fakes that he's going to stunt and go around him into the A gap, and then just basically pulls his body, as Drew said, turns him around a little bit here, and then he's just going to shoot through here, and he basically has a free rush to the quarterback. So Aaron Donald, you'll be hearing his name called quite a bit today. That is a BJ Reidell guarantee. On to the next one here. I believe we are moving to the offensive side of the ball now. Yes, we are. Let's start with Cooper Kupp. That was my X factor for the Rams this week, strictly because of what he's able to do versus, with guys around him. As a cohesive unit, this wide receiver group works very well together because they all have a lot of different talents. I already made a joke on Twitter this morning because I know it's going to happen. Cooper Kupp is going to get compared to Adam Thielen, and here's why. First of all, he's white. That's the number 1 thing here. Number 2, very gritty athlete. Number 3, tremendous route runner, and a guy that tends to make the first guy miss. Yeah, and he's a slot guy too. So let's take a quick look at what he's doing here. He's going to be at the top of your screen. Again, he's the white one on the field, so you can probably find him. He's going to make a quick turn right here. He's going to create about 2 yards of separation. And what makes this impressive, and what where you can actually draw a reasonable comparison to Adam Thielen without talking about ethnicity, is the yards after catch here, the plays that he creates after catching the ball. This is something we see from Adam Thielen all the time. 3 defenders close in on him here, and he's going to still fight forward, and he's going to end up forcing a fourth and fifth defender to get after him. So it took 5 guys to bring down Cooper Kupp right here. Very impressive player. Like Drew said, he'll be working on the slot today.
Yeah, this looks like kind of a little bit of either a bench or a smash concept here, where they have 2 corner routes and then 2 kind of little out routes kind of underneath them. And this is one of those players like with Cooper Kupp that you can kind of semi-trust to. You can throw short of the sticks, for example, and you can at least somewhat expect him to get close to that first down yardage, which he does here. I don't know the exact down and yardage to go here, but this is clearly a throw short of the sticks, and they trust Cooper Kupp even in that situation when he's got 2 guys collapsing on him to make a play here. And again, you look at the protection that Jared Goff gets here. It's solid, and he gets time to throw. And on a quick concept like this, it's really not adamant that you give him all day, but I think Andrew Whitworth and company there handle a nice stunt by Houston, and he gets time to throw. And these are throws that you're going to allow, these little short 4-yard throws. But making the tackle is the important part, and that's what the Vikings have done well this year. But not keeping that play to 4 or 5 yards as compared to 15 yards is going to be the difference in this game, I think. BJ, are you muted right now?
Am I good now?
Now you're good. I was going to say, what's happening?
That's my bad. Sorry. This is Robert Woods here. What I was saying while I was muted there is that this is the guy that I think a lot of people probably remember from USC. Sort of his heyday. He was a brilliant wide receiver when he was a Trojan. Has really not done a whole lot in the league. You've seen him pop up randomly with these 80-yard games and a touchdown. But he's starting to put it all together with the Rams and Sean McVay this year. I've been very impressed with what he's been able to do. What I want to talk about on this play is not just what Robert Woods is able to do, but also the play design here. So people have been talking about one launch angle all week for Jared Goff, which I think is going to be important. launch angle, simply meaning where he's throwing the ball from, obviously. You can manipulate that as a defensive coordinator, try to shift the pocket and move him around a little bit so that he's forced to make a throw from a different angle or one that he's potentially uncomfortable with. Simple math, guys. He's going to get a play action fake in here. He's going to be deep. He's going to be deep in the pocket here. And to some degree, this is a bit of a risk because, he's standing in the red zone, right? He's standing in the end zone here. He's going to take a big shot here, which credit to Jared Goff, for sticking in the pocket. He ends up getting laid by the defensive lineman. But look at the separation downfield from Robert Woods here. And I didn't even bother having the remaining 5 seconds of this clip just because you know where he's going. Very fast, vertical guy. He's basically going to break this thing off, and he's going to pop right by Jonathan Joseph. And my God, you just look at the separation there. That's 3 yards of separation just off of a simple move, a simple post here. And that's created by the play action design by Sean McVay and the talent of Robert Woods on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like what they do here is Houston's trying to bracket Kupp in the slot, right? And I think Goff recognized that right away and realized he's going to have one-on-one on the deep post route here. And again, Robert Woods has shown all season that he can be a big play guy. And I think it looks like a man coverage here with a bit of a blitz, and then they double bracket Kupp in the slot to allow one-on-one on the outside here. And I mean, it's over if you give Woods that kind of, if you don't bump him or make him uncomfortable at the line of scrimmage on that deep post, you're not going to catch him. And I mean, obviously this is different if it's Jonathan Joseph as compared to Xavier Rhodes, but right. I mean, Goff when he gets time and he has receivers that create separation. He's not an inaccurate passer by any means, and I think people got that perception last year. But he's in an offense now where he's comfortable. He's able to take shots down the field that are, they're not risky, they're calculated. And here's just another example, and he can make those throws when he's given the time. And again, the receivers when they have separation.
Absolutely. So one last note here that I was going to make on this play goes off of what you just said about having enough time. I mean, check this out here. I'm going to pause it right at this point because you can literally see Goff get enough time here. A lot of this is Andrew Whitworth. You can see Todd Gurley is also in there to chip or pick up a blitzer if he's there. But watch Goff survey the field here. He's going to go left to right. See his head there? Then he comes back to Cooper Kupp. Then he sees Robert Woods, and he throws this deep. And at that point, that gave Robert Woods enough time to not only get about 18 yards downfield before he cuts that route off at the top there, but also just allows him to, create enough separation, get that one-on-one matchup, and that's a product of a cohesive offense working together across the board. And this is an offense that doesn't have a lot of superstars. You obviously make a case for Todd Gurley, who's up next here. You can make a case for Andrew Whitworth, obviously being the fortifying left tackle that they got in free agency. But like Sammy Watkins, I mean, great player in college, hasn't been great in the NFL. Robert Woods, same type of thing. Cooper Kupp, a rookie from Eastern Washington, still has a lot to prove. I mean, who are the superstars here? Jared Goff, I mean, he's been good this year. Is he a superstar? No, you're probably crazy to say that this early in his career. It's basically Todd Gurley. But what Sean McVay has done is basically getting all these guys playing as a group. And on this play right here, the fact that Todd Gurley is available and that he has been so dynamic, that allows you to run that play action fake and get one-on-one coverage downfield. And Cooper Kupp, he draws that double team. Safety comes down. That opens it up downfield, and that's the difference on this play here. So a lot of beautiful stuff there from Sean McVay.
For what it's worth, too, Todd Gurley picked up the blitz there on the outside pretty well to allow Goff to make that throw. So, I mean, that's another thing to watch today, too, if, you see Anthony Barr, Harrison Smith, et cetera, on a blitz.
Right. This is something that I've seen people talking about all week, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit myself as well, just because I also noticed this on film. The Rams use a ton of screens, right? It's a big piece of their offense. A lot of what Sean McVay does is it's a lot like disguising plays, but just from an offensive perspective. So a lot of play action fakes, a lot of bubble screens, a lot of stuff to get his guys in space, his main playmakers. Honestly, I saw a lot of similarities between his play calling style and Pat Shurmur's play calling style when I was watching film this week. This is a play that I swear to God Pat Shurmur has ran before. You're going to see Todd Gurley leak out to the left side here. He's going to catch a screen pass, and he's going to run downfield. Basically, you're going to get two athletic blockers getting out in front of him. You're going to see a pancake, and that's going to create the seam for Todd Gurley to get in space and do his thing. So Let's watch this through right here. There's the play action fake. He leaks out, and check that out. Basically, he's got two blockers in front of him to stop one guy. That turns this into from a 5-yard play into a 20-yard play, and then all the way downfield. Anytime the safety is the one who tackled you, unless it's Harrison Smith, being that he always seems to come up in the backfield, if the safety's tackling you, that's generally going to be a good thing. Safety comes over here, makes the play late, but just look at the chunk yardage here. This is something that Sean McVay has done a masterful job in, and that's getting those 15-plus yard plays that really change the field. They shift momentum. They get the defense playing back on their heels, and this play in particular was on 3rd down too, so that keeps the defense on the field. That's a difference-making type of play. Todd Gurley is a difference-making athlete and the number one guy that you got to watch out for today on the Rams offense.
Yeah, I want to point out the linebackers and I think the nickel corner here and even the safeties. Watch as the play unfolds. When you have the misdirection jet sweep, I believe Tavon Austin comes across formation. Then you have the play action fake. Watch how unsure the linebackers are of what's happening. I mean, it's unbelievable. They have no clue. They have no clue what's happening. Then that leaves Todd Gurley in wide open space with 2 offensive linemen in front of him. Sean McVay's play designs have been phenomenal this season. It's a big reason why this offense is one of the tops in the league. And again, if you have misdirection all over the place like this, you're going to have guys confused and unsure about, what instinct to follow here. And that's when you have Todd Gurley, one of the best runners of the football, out in space like this. But yeah, it's just I look at this clip and I just laugh at the nickel corner and the 2 linebackers there, completely befuddled as to what's actually happening.
And it's not just them too. Check out the defensive tackle here. When number 98 slips through this double team here, watch his face. So he's going to see Todd Gurley right in front of him, and he probably at this point thinks that Todd Gurley has the ball. And then right here, he realizes that Todd Gurley does not have the ball, and then he sees him kind of leaking out, and you see the nervous, just the panic in this guy's eyes as he sees the ball. And then look at this. It's no contest once Gurley gets into space with the defensive tackle. He even has the better angle here. But there's just nothing you can do. That's how good Todd Gurley is. That's how good Sean McVay is. And honestly, credit to Jared Goff, because we have seen some teams not execute screen plays well, especially when, like you said, they have all those misdirection plays and those reverses and all that kind of crap that they throw in there to get linebackers and defensive tackles. That's not always easy to execute, and Goff does a tremendous job here executing what a lot of people consider to be, an easy throw to make. It's not necessarily always the case because it's a timing thing and, an execution thing at the end of the day. So shifting over to the Vikings now. I do have some Vikings film today as well, per standard. I want to start with, in my opinion, Case Keenum's dime of the week. Drew and I have been talking about this a lot lately about how Case Keenum has basically 2 or 3 throws every week that make you say, wow, like I did not see that throw coming. I did not, especially from that arm too. For me, this play occurred very early in the Washington matchup. This is going to be the deep play down the right sideline to Stephon Diggs. It's going to be play action, something that Drew has pointed out all season long, something that Pat Shurmur has been employing, similarly to Sean McVay. Let's run through it real quick. There's the play action fake to Jet McKinnon, and Diggs is going to go up and out and basically just make Josh Norman look like a fool here. So this is, again, a very technical route runner that right here you see this, and you can see the hesitation for Josh Norman right here. He leans that shoulder in, and as soon as you see that shoulder dip as a receiver, instinctively, that's when you cut it up because you've got him leaning, and that's the time to basically make your money. So he's going to get him leaning right here, and all of a sudden, then you're going to see Diggs cut it back upfield. And at that point right now, he's got that angle to the outside, and then it becomes a situation where does Josh Norman have the makeup speed to catch up with Stephon Diggs, and can Case Keenum drop this thing in with a little bit of touch with that safety coming over the top? Both things come to pass here. So this is a great play by both Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs to make one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, arguably a top 10 cornerback in the NFL, in Josh Norman, make him look absolutely silly on this play.
Yeah, I mean, this is just simple man cover one, it looks like, for the most part. And then the Vikings are essentially max protect here. This is a take a chance down the field type of play. I think Latavius Murray leaks out a little bit towards the end, but this is essentially Thielen and Diggs running routes. You have Thielen coming across the middle on a crosser. The two frees the deep safety enough, and then Diggs simply runs his double move on the outside, and that Thielen route keeps the safety in the middle of the field just long enough to open that window for Keenum. And then the protection's there. And again, Keenum throws a dime. And when you have a receiver like Diggs who can, make some of the best corners in the game look bad, that's a pretty good combination. So, and the thing with Keenum is he's one of the most, I guess, how do I say this? He's a gunslinger in terms of backup QBs, it feels like. He likes to take those chances down the field. And for the most part, I would say it's been pretty 50-50 as far as taking those shots. And, he has some of those haven't worked out, obviously, but that's what, when you have these 2 to 3 dimes that we talk about every single week, a lot of them are because he's willing to take that shot, that chance down the field, give his receivers, Diggs and Thielen a chance to make a big play. And this is another example here. He just happened to throw a perfect ball.
I'm glad that you brought that up, the willingness to go down the field, because check out how perfectly the Redskins defend Latavius Murray on this play as he slips out. So here's the play action fake. Murray's going to fake as if he's going to stay in as a blocker. Now watch him leak out. Check out where he's leaking to. He's leaking out directly into a Redskins linebacker. So the Redskins basically said, I don't think that Case Keenum's going to throw this down the field. They're going to try to get their guy in space and get the first down yardage that way. And Case Keenum makes the decision to go downfield here. I know we get knocked on YouTube for whatever reason every week about not loving Case Keenum's play and just, I guess, talking down about him all the time, which I don't think we do. But this is the nicest thing I could say about Case Keenum. He is a unbelievable decision maker at the point guard position in the NFL. It's the most difficult decision making across the sports world. You have a split second to decide here, and if he checks this down, that's probably a pick six. So credit to Case Keenum for knowing where his guys are going to be and also knowing where those defensive guys are going to be, where they play his tendencies. Case Keenum is aware of that. Credit to him in that regard. We're going to see another play here. This is another one. This one's going to Thielen, another dime in my opinion from Case Keenum. And then also Adam Thielen makes this play look great. So another trend here. Sticking with the play action system. This is going to be out of the shotgun here. This is going to be Jet McKinnon instead of Latavius Murray. Play action fake comes through. He's going to see Thielen cut it up here basically with the linebacker stuck in that low zone and the safety stuck in the high zone. And Keenum's going to find him about right here as he kind of cuts off that linebacker, and that creates a situation where Thielen is going to be basically one-on-one with some safety help, and it's going to take a nice touch throw here to fit this into space because there are 3 guys around him here. I mean, Phil Jackson would draw a triangle around these guys. There's literally that's a perfect defense here, a perfect play call, and literally the execution of Thielen here to break off his route at the right time, make the right plays, and Keenum making the right decision here. Just a phenomenal play. You don't need Aaron Rodgers' arm talent to be successful in the NFL. Case Keenum is literally proving that here by just being a smart player and a good executioner is funny, but a guy that executes this offense very well here. And Adam Thielen just makes him look good, seemingly week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at what the Redskins do here. This looks like cover 4, and it looks like Rudolph on his corner out at the top takes 2 of those deep 4 zones with him, and then Thielen's post route really takes only 1 of the other 2, and the kind of the safety there. And Norman just kind of stays in no man's land with really nobody there to cover. So he's late to realize that. Thielen breaks it up and notices that he's behind, one of the last, members of defense for the Redskins. Great, job tier 2 by Case Keenum to flush out of the pocket, knowing it's going to collapse and take the hit too. He takes a pretty good shot as he lets this one go. And again, this is a pretty solid throw because he knows he has those 2 defenders on Rudolph here. He's got to keep it away from them, while at the same time giving Thielen a chance and also fit it in, as Norman tries to catch up and play, from behind here. So this is a great play by Case Keenum, a great improvisation by Thielen to break that up the field, and realize that there's a big play opportunity here.
Also, good improvisation too from Case Keenum here. We talk about changing the launch angle for Jared Goff. How about trying to change the launch angle for Case Keenum? I mean, anytime you get a quarterback out of the pocket, especially a quote backup quarterback, you tend to believe that you're going to have a chance to either get an incompletion or a sack here. And Case Keenum basically gets himself in position. Now watch him set himself up here before he makes this throw. Instead of making this with like a one-handed lob across his body, He's going to set his feet and he's going to drive into that throw. That's a very important thing, especially for guys out there. If you're someone that likes to, analyze prospects, check out how they set their feet once they roll out of the pocket. Lamar Jackson, for example, a guy that has been criticized for setting his feet, and a lot of people like to call him a wide receiver, but he actually does this very well. Once you change that launch angle, you still have to reset your feet. That's very important. Case Keenum does a tremendous job of that here, and that's how he's able to get enough arc, enough touch on this ball, and make the completion downfield to Adam Thielen. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball now, I believe. Let's talk a little bit about Harrison Smith, huh? This guy, he's pretty good. He's pretty good at football. This is important because I think the run defense is going to be very important this week against Todd Gurley. Fairly obvious statement there. You guys probably didn't need to come to that show to hear that knowledge. But watch Harrison Smith here. I'm just going to run this play through without describing anything. Just watch Harrison Smith at the top of your screen. It's just the read, the reaction, and the execution. It's cliche, but just look at how quickly he comes down here. Literally, he's in the box. He started out in zone, basically faking a zone coverage, comes up into the box, and he is 5 yards away from the play as Kirk Cousins begins his drop back. Right here. He's 5 yards away, essentially. He's going to come up and make the hit here. And then also the swarming defense. Check out Eric Kendricks come in there from the other side of the edge here. And that's going to be a gang tackle, 3 different guys getting involved there. That's Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, and Linval Joseph working together in a cohesive unit to make a great tackle for loss on a very shifty player, Chris Thompson.
Right. I mean, and the thing about Harrison Smith, too, is that he when he takes that kind of creep up, thing to the line of scrimmage, he kind of just creeps up. It's too late for offensive lines or for Kirk Cousins, for that matter, in this situation to adjust protection or adjust the run blocking scheme because you already have everything set and the play clock is probably running down here. So you're essentially you're counting for your safeties to be unblocked, right? And Harrison Smith, I'm assuming this was to some degree a designed run blitz, but he times it perfectly. And again, he's just so quick out of that kid. And by the time Thompson has the ball, Smith is essentially at the line of scrimmage unblocked. And from there, we already know how, reliable Harrison Smith is as a tackler. And this is a play that he does multiple times per week. And it's one of the reasons why he's regarded as one of the best run stopping safeties in the NFL right now.
Absolutely. Dude is like he's got shot out of a cannon, basically, anytime he comes up from his safety spot.
That's why I like Anthony Harris in there today, too, because you can allow Harrison Smith to still do that type of thing and still have Anthony Harris on the backside.
And this right here, that last play, is why I personally, if you have to choose a designation, I consider Harrison Smith a strong safety. Most people say he's a free safety, but he does his best work, in my opinion, from strong safety spots on the field, playing inside the box there, making good reads on the quarterback on pass plays, and just that play is so ridiculous. I just remember, I think about when I was in high school, and if you see, it basically takes Harrison Smith 2 seconds to go 8 yards. He goes 0 to 60 faster than basically anyone. And just thinking about what, have you ever seen that picture of Harrison Smith from when he was in high school, when he was like a 4-star recruit?
I have.
And he looks hilarious.
Like the long hair.
Yeah, he looks absurd. You just, Harry the Hitman came from that guy.
He doesn't look like he went to Notre Dame. He doesn't look like a Notre Dame kid.
No, he does not. Okay, so another guy here. We just talked about Eric Kendricks a little bit on that last play. I saw this one pop up on Twitter. This particular play pop up on Twitter a couple times this week. This is going to be a tremendous read and reaction again from Eric Kendricks, and this is critical this week. Aggressive. What do we always say here? Being aggressively disciplined. In knowing when you can hit that hold hard and knowing when you got to stay back a little bit. Check out Eric Kendricks on this play. Read the play. He's going to see Kirk Cousins essentially kind of botched this fake, in my opinion. You see so the way that Kirk Cousins is, going to get that ball to him, it's sort of obvious that it's very clearly going to be a stretch run play. Just kind of the angle that Thompson is taking as he grabs that handoff, and watch Kendricks shoot this gap here, and then also watch the rest of the Vikings swarm to the football. So Kendricks at this point right here, there's the toss. Here he comes. He's going to basically shoot out from what would be like an F gap, pretty much. And he's going to come. Yeah. He's going to pop in through here, and you're going to see check out Rhodes here in run defense. Check out Mackenzie Alexander. So even if Eric Kendricks misses this tackle, the Vikings have him beat. Linval Joseph too, by the way. Look how fast the big man is there to get to the spot. And Kendricks is going to make basically a shoestring tackle, a type of play that you can typically make against Chris Thompson-like backs. I don't know if that type of thing is going to work against Todd Gurley this week. But the major takeaway here is the instincts of Kendricks to recognize the run play and get to the spot of the ball, and then also the swarming defensive play of the Vikings. This has been a big difference in the run defense this year versus last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to bring one thing up here before we go do our game predictions and stuff. I've expressed concerns in the past about the Vikings getting beat by cutback runs, and I feel like this is a sort of a reason for that because they're so fast on these outside runs. And they limit these so well because they're so, they see the toss outside and they're all so speedy, so quick, so, reactionary out the line that if the running back does cut back in some of these situations, and especially if it's designed, they can really get burned on some of those. So, and it's, again, I hate to turn this into a negative because this is a really good play by the defense, but I think this kind of shows how and why the Vikings do get beat on some of those cutback runs. Like, for example, you saw Amir Abdullah do week 4. I think he almost had 100 yards in that game, and a lot of them were on cutback runs in which he, there was only one guy on the backside, and he was able to make the guy miss, for example, and it turned into about a 15-yard run.
Well, I think I have this paused at a good point here to illustrate what you're saying. See where Linval Joseph's leverage is, number 98. You can see where I believe it's Anthony Barr. Anthony Barr's leverages, Mackenzie Alexander, basically the only guy here, and he is being held up pretty well, that is in position to handle a cutback run if Chris Thompson were to, at this point, shake and bake and go to the other side. Is that Brian Robinson? That's basically going to give you a one-on-one matchup on a cutback right here. I mean, again, great play by Eric Kendricks. We don't mean to take away from that.
And if Washington designs this as a cutback run, they probably have a guy accounting for Brian Robinson here. So,
right. So, just something to keep an eye on, something that the Vikings have had trouble with kind of throughout the Mike Zimmer tenure, and that has extended to some degree into this year despite very, vastly improved run defense. So, let's finish up the show here now. If for those of you guys that are in the YouTube chat, feel free to throw out your takes for the week, your bold predictions. If you have any questions for us, we'll be happy to answer those as well. But let's finish up here with our specific, bold predictions and matchups. Give me one bold prediction, and then reiterate your prediction for the game that we talked about, on the last podcast here.
Yeah. How about a bold prediction here? I like Adam Thielen to go over 150 yards again this week. Again, I expressed, not a lot of, I guess on my side of the issue, it would be confidence, but on the Rams side of the ball here, I would say it's not confidence in the Rams DBs. And I think Thielen especially can take advantage in the slot. So that's what I like to happen again this week, 150 yards for Adam Thielen. And then I think the Vikings win the game 23-20. It'll be a close one. This should be a fun one. Two of the, essentially two teams vying for the driver's seat for a first round bye in the playoffs. And I think the Rams are facing they haven't faced really a tough opponent since I think it was week 5 when they played Jacksonville. Right. And I would say I would consider the Vikings a better team than Jacksonville. But point being is that the Rams are hot right now, but they haven't met a match essentially in a long time. And I think the Vikings could kind of stonewall them here.
To some degree, you could say the same thing about the Vikings as well, though. The Vikings haven't played a great team in a while, something that you love to touch on.
I gave credit to Washington last week. I think that was a pretty solid win, but.
Absolutely. I agree with you. But just generally speaking here, the Vikings schedule obviously getting considerably more difficult now than it had been. Same can be said about the Rams as well. This is kind of a make or break matchup for both teams, in terms of creating home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Yeah. If you want to be a 1 or 2 seed, you got to win this matchup here because especially for the Rams who, I saw today that on their schedule coming up here, who do they have? They got like Seattle, 2 or 3 other really good teams.
They have, I think the Falcons too, maybe.
Yeah, over the next like
But
4 weeks, and obviously the Vikings as well. I'd like to consider ourselves an elite opponent, at least at this point in the season. So this is a very difficult matchup across the board. Mike Zimmer versus Sean McVay. There's going to be some adjustments made there. It might come down to who makes the better adjustment after seeing what they come out with their initial scripts and whatnot. I really do think this one can go either way. I'm going to pick the Rams, and I'm going to pick the Rams here just because. Yeah, I know. I'm going to pick the Rams just because they're surging right now. There's a lot to like about this Rams team, offensively, defensively. Two of the very best coaches across the league here, in Sean McVay and Wade Phillips. I'm going to say the exact score that you did, except for I'm going to say the Rams. I'm going to say 23 Rams, Vikings 20. That. The reason why I'm going with that is that the Vikings don't get to that 21-point plateau, which historically speaking, as we love to tell you on every single episode of every single show of everything we do, tends to be a Vikings victory. So I don't think the Vikings are going to get to 21 points this week against this defense. But I do think that this is going to be, a roller coaster ride. I'm, fully ready, fully prepared for this thing to, start out like 14-0 Vikings or something like that, and then have the Rams come back, and then you get that give and take going down the stretch. I could totally see that type of thing happening here. Battle of minds here. We'll see who comes out with the better script first, whether that's Sean McVay or Mike Zimmer. I really think this is the type of game that could be decided during the first quarter. Who sets the tone first? Who creates that stupid turnover first? Who gets momentum running in their favor? Who is controlling the clock early on in the game? I think that's going to be who wins here. So once again, Rams 23, Vikings 20. And for my bold prediction, despite that, I'm gonna just steal what Jordan Reed said on Twitter earlier this week.
Yeah.
I'm going to give credit to him, though, of course. I thought this was a great take. Going off of what Drew said earlier, Adam Thielen needs 207 yards to reach the 1,000 yard plateau. And if you've been listening to our show for, I don't know, at least 3 months or so, you've probably heard me say this a million times. Sidney Rice is the last Vikings receiver in 2009 to get to that 1,000 yard plateau. We haven't seen it in almost 10 years now. It's been almost a decade. It really, really seems like Adam Thielen is going to get there. But then again, it also seemed like he was going to get there last year. I'm going to say bold prediction, co-sign on what Jordan said earlier this week, that he gets all 207 of those yards against Nickel Roby-Coleman and Tremaine Johnson this week. Kayvon Webster might be in the mix as well. I think he's going to assassinate all of these cornerbacks today. I totally see a big performance from Adam Thielen. No matter how you measure it, this is a game that is set for him to basically break out an elite performance. And despite the fact that I am predicting a Rams victory, I think that he's going to show up in a big way and be a very important piece to this Vikings, whatever this is here. He's going to be an important piece to keeping this game competitive. Let's put it that way. So we'll finish up here with any comments and stuff that you guys have for us. We got a bold take here from, it looks like Alan Adkins. I'm not sure how you pronounce that first name with an E and an A in there. That's kind of different for me. But he said, my bold take is Treadwell 80-plus yards. Drew, what do you think of his bold take?
I mean, the thing about the receivers is that Diggs and Thielen are seeing so many targets because they're the ones that are always, A, first in the progression, and B, they are getting open. So, I mean, it is bold. I'll give him that. I don't see it happening, but it's just, and that's more because of how well Diggs and Thielen play and how much of the chemistry that they've built with Case Keenum, and Case Keenum hasn't really had time to do that with Treadwell. Yeah,
see, I'm not going to knock this take because I basically had the same take way back when against Tampa Bay. For a very similar reason here. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are balling out. You think that third cornerback is probably going to be Kayvon Webster on Laquan Treadwell this week. If you expect, Tremaine Johnson to take Stephon Diggs and Roby-Coleman to take Adam Thielen in the slot. I don't mind this take. It is bold because anytime you expect a career high from Treadwell, it's going to be bold. Yeah. But I don't hate it by any means, just because I could see it. He has. What has he been commanding? Basically 2 or 3 targets a game, maybe all season long. If Treadwell gets 6 or 7 targets this week, which I'm not going to put it past the possibility of that, just because of how basically selfish. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs have been with hogging the targets all season long. I think that's kind of the difference in this prediction here, but I don't mind that take at all. I actually think it's a pretty good one. So I would stick with that. It might happen. We might look back here and, you might end up seeing this actually come to fruition here. So another bold prediction. We got about 5 minutes left here, so I'll just keep running through these here if you guys got any more. Again, takes, questions, jokes. I like jokes. Throw those out at us. From Johnny Ash, he said, bold prediction, Danielle Hunter, 2 sacks. Todd Gurley is less than 70 yards today. Your thoughts on that, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. And I think the next guy on here, Crown Juice, says that, or the next person, Crown Juice, says that the Rams right tackle is not the best. So that could be. I mean, Danielle Hunter.
Rob Havenstein?
Yeah, for sure. I could see Danielle Hunter having a game. He's due. We always say that with players that just aren't playing well or aren't putting up the stats, but he's due. And I think Everson Griffin's return could maybe ignite something.
Little background on Rob Havenstein for those of you who don't remember here. Former Wisconsin Badger. So I'm sure a lot of our audience, being I would assume primarily Gopher fans, would love to see Wisconsin's Rob Havenstein get absolutely blown up by Danielle Hunter today. Again, these are good bold predictions today. I'm actually really satisfied. I think we get a lot of people just like not even looking at the matchups and just throwing out like what they want to see. But I think your guys' takes today are on point. You guys did your homework clearly. You listened to the About the Labor show this week, and you're coming out with some bold takes here that are very solid. So thank you for all of you guys that joined us today on the show. Thank you for throwing out your bold predictions and everything. It makes our jobs easier when you give us the content to work with. So we appreciate you guys showing up this morning with us. Enjoy the Vikings game this week. Hopefully we come out of here 8-2. I saw someone say this earlier that 8-2 looks considerably better than 7-3, and I completely agree with that take because 8-2 sounds really good. 4 wins for every 1 loss. Yep. It's really nice. So hopefully the Vikings get that W today. It should be a phenomenal matchup either way. So if you're a football fan, man, this is from an outside perspective, Rams-Vikings is probably a matchup of the week caliber here. So make sure you enjoy those games. Check us out at VikingsTerritory.com if you're not already. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. We're also on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, all that jazz. About the Labor podcast. Make sure to check out SOCOM Creative. That's www.socomcreative.co. And we will check you guys tomorrow for the rapid reaction about the Labor podcast. And then we will both be back, I believe, on Tuesday or Wednesday, somewhere in there. We haven't specifically figured out our schedule for the Vikings Territory Roundtable. So thanks again, guys, and we'll catch you guys later on this week.